Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the October edition of 1 Month to a More Effective Compliance program. This is the only monthly compliance program focusing on a different subject, taking a deep dive so that it will help you have a more effective compliance program. This month, I will be talking about 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures. But first, a word from this month's sponsor, the Volkov Law Group.
Hi, I'm Mike Volkov of the Volkov Law Group and proud sponsor of this month's podcast series. The Volkov Law Group believes that every company should have a robust ethics and compliance program. Experience and research show that ethical companies are better performers in the global marketplace. At ethical companies, employees believe in the company, they feel vested in the company, and are more productive. As a result, misconduct rates are much lower and financial performance is higher. We can help you achieve these benefits through an effective ethics and compliance program. The Volkov Law Group specializes in corporate compliance, internal investigations, and white-collar defense. We are your partners in our joint mission of building an effective ethical culture for your company. Our 10 years experience shows that business cultures can change. We are committed to work with you to achieve an ethical culture in your company. We address your company's anti-corruption, antitrust, trade and sanctions, anti-money laundering, and other regulatory and legal risks. We do this through practical guidance that your company can easily implement. You can learn more about our commitment to effective ethics and compliance programs at our website, www.volkovlaw.com, our award-winning blog, Corruption, Crime, and Compliance, and our new podcast series of the same name. You can contact me at my email address, mvolkov@volkovlaw.com. Let us know how we can help you achieve your goals.
Thank you, Michael. In this month's series, we will take a look at the role of compliance in mergers and acquisitions, the role of compliance in joint ventures, in joint venture agreements, distributorships, franchises, teaming agreements, partnerships, as well as other types of business relationships. At the end of October, you have an excellent grounding in what you need to do for a business venture under the FCPA. My 1 month series of 1 month to a more effective compliance program running through 2017 is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Day 9, Post-Acquisition Integration Plan. Your company has just made its largest acquisition ever, and your chief executive officer says he wants you to have a post-compliance acquisition integration plan on his desk in 1 week. Where do you begin? Of course, you think about the 2012 FCPA guidance, but remember that it did not have the timelines established in the enforcement actions involving Johnson & Johnson or Defendant Data Systems and Solutions. While there are timeframes listed in the deferred prosecution agreements of these enforcement actions that can provide a guide of timeframes, many compliance professionals struggle with how to perform these post-acquisition integrations. An article from the Harvard Business Review entitled 2 Routes to Resilience gives some guidance, I believe, to the compliance practitioner to help create a post-acquisition integration game plan. Anyone who has ever gone through a large merger or acquisition knows how terrifying it can be for an individual employee. Many people, particularly at the acquired company, will be fearful of losing their jobs. This fear, misplaced or well-founded, can lead to difficulties in the integration process. As the author suggests, establishing a capability exchange, which is a new organizational process that allows two ongoing concerns to share resources without interfering with each other's operations. It allows the two organizations to live together and share strengths and coordinate so that there will be not unwanted interference from the other. There are 5 steps in this process the authors lay out. Number 1, establish compliance leadership. While this may be the simplest step, it's also the one most open to abuse. The process should be run by a few top people, which I believe are the CEO, the CFO, and perhaps the CCO of the acquiring company, and a similar counterpart from the acquired company. 2, identify the compliance resources that two organizations can have or need to share. Hopefully, the acquiring organization will have some idea of the state of the compliance program before the deal is closed if you've done adequate pre-acquisition due diligence. It may be there is some or all of a minimum best practices compliance program in place. If so, attention needs to turn to what can continue and then what needs to be implemented and, of course, what needs to be integrated. Create compliance exchange teams. In many synergy efforts, everyone is expected to think about the ways resources might be shared. In compliance capability exchanges, the responsibility should be confined to a series of teams. Senior leadership should create compliance teams by assigning a small number of persons from both entities with responsibility of allocating resources to be used in this compliance integration project. Number 4, protect boundaries. This one is tricky as employees from the former target may not want to move forward with the integration for fear of losing their jobs or some other reason. There may also be internal disputes as to which group may handle an issue going forward. This area is tricky because it is important not to alienate new employees who might have good ideas on the integration or how to move forward. Once again, the leadership team must step in and referee disputes decisively if required. And number 5, scale up and promote the new compliance program. It is important to celebrate and promote the new identity to both the acquiring company, others in the company, and external stakeholders. I should say others in the acquired company. It is important that markets and others in the same or similar industry see evolution and growth. Take time to publicize the integrated compliance function with the internal customer, i.e. company employees. This would include compliance stakeholders, third-party representatives, both on the sales side and the supply chain side of the house, and even customers. Finally, be sure to inform your management, board of directors, and regulators, such as the Department of Justice, as appropriate if you find anything in this post-acquisition integration phase. Whatever the compendium of steps you utilize for post-acquisition integration, they should be taken as soon as practicable. This is the far end of the limit that we've seen in either enforcement actions or indeed the 2012 FCPA guidance. Obviously, the earlier you can deploy these steps, the better off your company will be at the end of the day. A failed merger and acquisition can destroy a company's market value, destabilize its financial position and credit ratings, and impair its strategic position, weaken both organizations, and damage the company's reputation. This is particularly true for failed mergers and acquisition compliance. One only need consider the Latin Note FCPA enforcement action, where the acquiring company had to write off its entire investment. Indeed, I have worked on cases where a part of a acquired company's subsidiaries had to be simply given away because they could not be brought into compliance. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, I think it's important to understand that it's really a 5-step process laid out here for a post-acquisition integration plan. And let me just review those once again. Establish compliance leadership, identify the compliance resources within the two organizations that can or need to be shared, create compliance exchange teams, protect boundaries, and scale up and promote the new compliance program. Planning is going to be a critical part of the post-acquisition phase, or this is point number 2. But you build upon what you learned in the pre-acquisition phase. So once again, if you think of this as a continuum, a unidimensional continuum, you You have pre-acquisition risk assessment, you have pre-acquisition due diligence, and you have a pre-acquisition evaluation. Hopefully you will have a fairly good handle on what is in place and what needs to be done. And finally, you literally have to hit the ground running when a transaction closes. As soon as practicable may only mean, and probably does only mean, 18 months, absent very, very unusual circumstances. And if you've ever worked in a corporation, you understand that 18 months in the corporate world is a very short time frame. So you've got to hit the ground running. You've got to be ready to go when the transaction closes. You have to have your integration team in place, and you have to have your integration plan in place. So back at the start of this podcast, I asked, what should you do when your CEO says he wants to see your post-acquisition integration plan on his desk in 1 week? Well, if you take the concepts I've talked about in this podcast, I think it will give you a very good start to putting together a plan you can have in place. But with all plans, you must also recognize that the plan is subject to change. The OODA feedback loop works in this situation as well. As information comes in based upon your plan, you loop it back into and feed it into your overall game plan going forward, making adjustments as appropriate. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed Day 9 of 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for Day 10. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures, and I hope you will join me again. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate the podcast, as it would help in our rankings and help get the word out about the only daily podcast which will bring you a more effective compliance program. If you have any questions, you can email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Once again, thanks to this month's sponsor, Mike Volkoff at the Volkoff Law Group. The podcast series, 1 month to a more effective compliance program, is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Please join us again.